Welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast, where we address the challenges and the opportunities of midlife from a uniquely Catholic perspective. This is the time, my friends, for a deeper renewal of your Christian vocation. Come and enter into the freedom of Christ that allows you to be the person you were created to be, because there's an amazing, awesome, exciting next season of life waiting for you. Hello and welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast. This is Karen and Curtis Herbert.
Hi, everyone.
And we're here with you for episode number 102. We have a comment from a listener from January who says, Thank you. Your podcasts and talks are keeping my mind a little sharper and my encouragement and hope up in this dreary winter season. God bless you.
Oh, what a great comment. And we appreciate you, my listener friend. And it's great to hear from you. Thank you so much.
So, Curtis, you led us through a very nice goal-setting exercise last week. I just want to say thank you. I appreciated it myself as I'm trying to set my 2024 goals and think about how I want to be intentional about moving into change and changing some things in my life.
Well, thank you, Karen, and you're welcome. Certainly, change is happening all the time. If we're living, we need to grow because otherwise we're going in the opposite direction.
Exactly.
And so if we can set some goals, then we're more likely to grow in the direction and the way and the shape that we're hoping for.
So, Curtis, I wanted to talk today about what it actually takes to create that change that we want.
Oh, so you want actual change, do you?
Well, I'm interested in some actual change, and I appreciate that we may not always understand what it takes to get it.
I think that's right, because if we understood it, wouldn't we get the change we want more quickly?
Yeah. And I may be the only one here. Our listeners may never have had this experience of wanting the change and having some motivation and taking some action, but for whatever reason, we just can't follow through. We just can't get to the place we want to be, and there's always these obstacles.
Everyone's struggled with their goals, Karen. That's universal. It's not just you, don't worry.
Okay, that makes me feel better. That makes me feel better. This framework, though, about what it takes to create change, it does really help me in making more and better progress towards my goals. And there are four things that have to happen to really get the change you want. That's what I'd like to talk about.
Okay,
today,
four things. Hit me.
Okay, number one. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the one I think most people don't know about. And ironically, it's also the thing you have to do first. Because if you don't do this, even before you set a goal, you may not even be setting the right goals for yourself. Or maybe you get to taking action and you're trying to be focused on the thing, but it's very easy to just peter out and not follow through and get what you're aiming for.
Great. And I'd like to invite our listeners to try to guess what this might be. Because even to this day, if I'm setting a goal, the first thing I do is think of some metric that I want to achieve. That's just where I go.
Yeah.
But that's not the first step.
That's a really good point, Curtis. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
The first step is releasing your baggage.
Oh, release your baggage.
Release your baggage.
Okay. So what do you mean by that?
Well, let me say this first. The part of you that decides on your goal and sets your goal, that's your conscious mind. So maybe you sit down, you write down a goal you want, or you tell someone your goal, or maybe you even just say to yourself something you want. Oh, it's about time to get going on the exercise, or I think it's time to get a new car. Those are maybe less intentional ways of setting a goal.
I really like that example of maybe it's time to fill in the blank, because our unconscious minds, they're making goals for us all the time. And as soon as I start to say and think things like that, well, there's a goal. And now the question becomes how, effectively or quickly or successfully am I going to get there to where I want to be? Or am I going to miss the point entirely?
Well, one way to remember how things work and what the distinctions are is to say your conscious mind is the goal setter and your unconscious mind is the goal getter. So that's the part of you that's going to kick in and manage your motivation and change your behavior and create the habits. That's all the unconscious mind. And there can be some obstacles in the unconscious mind that may be in conflict with the goal you're trying to consciously set and what you think you want.
And one of the keys here is simply knowing that and trying to get your unconscious on board. Find some ways to get it moving with you once you realize, look, this requires more than just an act of the will. It requires more than just gritting your teeth and getting it done, because that works for a while. When we want to really get it done, we need our goal getter on board.
We do. So here's a good example. I know this guy who had some awareness that he was at an unhealthy weight, and he kept trying to lose the weight, and he would for a while, but he kept gaining it back. And finally, he recognized he had this unconscious belief that had just developed from life experiences that people don't like you for who you are. He believed that people don't like you for who you are. And this part of him thought, well, if I'm overweight, then the people who like me, they're not superficial. They're going to see me as a person and like me for who I am. So there was this fear of losing the weight and not being received for who he was. And until he got rid of that belief, he couldn't consistently lose the weight and keep it off.
There were drivers in his life that made it really important for him to be liked for who he really was.
Yeah.
And I don't know what those were, but apparently growing up or whenever it was, he had people, friends that would hang out with him for, I guess, other reasons.
Yeah. I have seen this show up in my life in a slightly different way where I have some activities that somehow I've connected this negative emotion with them. And really, it's very hard for me to do those things. And if I don't disconnect the negative emotion from the action, I just don't take that action. Or else it's really, really hard and takes a lot of energy.
I can't help. So I've been watching a lot of football. It's that time of year.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. And Taylor, she's at the peak of her fame and power. And I'm sure she's surrounded by people that are completely blinded by all that. I think that's a big challenge for some of these celebrities.
Oh, interesting.
Is to find people that just like them for who they are. And, you know, those celebrity lives, they're often so troubled. You see them in the tabloids. So I have some sympathy for this person. But I have to say, if you want to hang out with me because I'm good looking and so charming, that's just fine.
That's okay by you.
You could like me for that. And I need more people like that in my life instead of fewer. But that's just me.
That's just you. I love it. I love it.
Now, I have an example. Before we were married, Karen, you'll probably remember, if you think about it, we went as a couple with another engaged couple to go camping.
Oh,
because I aspired to have a family that loved to go camping because that's something I enjoy, the outdoors. And I thought, okay, let's get the ball rolling early. And before I went, I consulted with the camping guru. Do you know who that is?
I have a guess.
Yeah, it's Gene.
Okay.
And we're not changing the names here because there's no innocent parties to protect. All right. So I talked to Gene, who is the consummate outdoors man.
Okay.
And he goes on these long, long trips with his wife. And I said, Gene, give me some advice. I'm going on this camping trip. And I want these ladies to really embrace this camping lifestyle. And he said, well, Curtis, if you want her to go camping with you, you better make sure that the very first time she goes, that she loves it. Because if she doesn't like it, she's never going to go with you ever again.
Oh, interesting.
And so that other fella, we We loaded up the coolers with all kinds of treats and grapes and drinks and lugged all that stuff out to the campsite just to do our very best.
Well, I remember having positive emotion associated with that experience. So you did your job. And I had nothing in terms of camping baggage to get rid of.
Well, and that's the point then, is if you had created a bunch of baggage around a negative experience, it'd be really natural for you to avoid, to procrastinate, to delay, to think of other things to do. And that's just how we work as human beings.
I think we all have connections we've made unconsciously that can block our goal achievement. So really, this step one is to find out what they are and release them so that you can move forward in what it is you really want.
Releasing the baggage. Okay, great, Karen. So once I've done that, what happens now?
Well, once you've released your baggage, then you can go on to set the goals. And they're much more likely to be goals that are right for you because you won't be hampered by all the obstacles. And your unconscious mind will be on your side and ready to support your goals. I know we've said this before, but many of us don't know how to set effective and achievable goals. We don't set ourselves up for success. Very often we want to start like you wanted to with some kind of specific outcome and some metrics, and then jump into all the actions. What you want to start with your goals, though, is what we call the avatar. Who is it you want to be in the future? And you touched on this, right, in your own exercise last week, because you were saying, well, when you're in this new place and you have what it is you want, what's different about you? Who are you that's different? How are you engaging with life in a different way? And if you don't have this vision for who you're becoming, then your goals and actions might be haphazard and you won't be as satisfied when you do get the outcomes.
Who do you want to be spiritually?
Yeah.
In the spiritual domain, or mentally? Those are a little different categories, actually. Emotionally, physically, maybe relationally. How do you want to show up? So there's this avatar of who we could be.
Yeah. And once you have that picture clear in your mind, then you can start to infer and extrapolate the aims and actions that will get you there. Often we do set the goals and they're not really the correct goals for us or the ones that are going to get us to what it is we really want.
Well, that resonates for me. Do you have an example?
Well, let's see. Okay, so I could set a goal and maybe not have an avatar, maybe a goal like I want to write a book. Okay, so I want to have this outcome. I want to do this thing. But if you dig a little deeper, maybe what you really want is you want to bring connection and encouragement to other people who maybe have experienced some situation or life reality that you've experienced. So your aim really is to be an encouraging and inspiring leader, maybe a connector in a particular area. And the decisions you make about the book will all be evaluated in light of this bigger aim. Like, is a book the thing that's going to really kick you off in that direction? And if so, what's the right kind of book? What is it that you're really bringing? And it's going to inform that goal in a different way.
I was thinking of how that might show up. So you're going around saying, oh, I'm going to write the book, but you're not writing the book. And it's because you really have a different way of being that you're aiming for. You want to be an encourager in this area.
Sure. So either the book is not the thing, or you're not connected enough with this higher level of who you want to be. That's what's really going to inspire and motivate you to write the book.
Right. So you're not getting going on the book, and it's because you don't have a really clear vision of who it is you're trying to be, so that if you knew that, that would tell you a lot about what's supposed to go in the book and what's next.
Exactly. Doing a really clear avatar process is what helps you to set the right aims and the right goals. Sometimes people do it and they change their goals, or they realize, gee, I've been shooting really low. I can do a lot bigger things here if I'm really focused on this vision.
That kind of goes back to one of the elements I was trying to speak to in that exercise is often our goals are merely extrapolations or interpolations of what we've already done. And we're not looking beyond our, kind of our present history. Here's my example, Karen, and it shows how the avatar thing can be a little slippery. Mm-hmm. But at least I hope we can get the concept in place that, hey, let's get the avatar right. So what happened for me was I realized at a certain point that if I don't start working out, I'm going to get injured in my sporting activities, my summer sports particularly. I was talking with the other people, and all those people, they all work out. They're not super buff or whatever, but they're in good shape. And I started doing some exercise, and I was making decent progress, actually. I would get up and do things, and it was going, I guess, okay. But I started talking with one of my friends, and he said, and he is a great workout guy. And he said, well, I'm always taking classes. I'm always doing something in a group. It keeps me interested. I'm changing it up. And I thought, wow, okay, I should try that. And I signed up for a gym that has a bunch of group activities. And I really, really enjoyed it. And it greatly accelerated my getting in shape goals, like by orders of magnitude. And I realized what had happened was I got into that group setting and it was super energetic and I just really enjoyed it. So naturally, and plus I was getting expert advice. And so naturally it all accelerated for me. And I had been resisting doing that because I thought, well, I'm a coach. I have all this training. I should be providing my own motivation. I should be getting my own excitement. I should be hunting down my own resources, and I should be saving money by not paying somebody, even in a group setting in a gym, to help me do this stuff. My avatar was kind of directed narrowly.
Yeah.
But then once I had this different experience, I just realized, oh, well, I should be doing the most effective thing to get the job done.
Yeah. It's interesting. It sounds like you maybe had a number of different unconscious beliefs going on there about money, about investment in your physical health, about what you thought you should be able to do versus what kinds of support maybe you needed.
Well, that's right. And it shows you how much can be going on. I mean, really, there's kind of a duh factor.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you're really serious about getting in shape, why wouldn't you go to a great gym with great people that have a great program and get after it? It seems kind of obvious. But it's not so obvious because I am who I am and I was in a certain place and I had all these reasons for wanting to do it all on my own.
Yeah. But you were able to take the action, sounds like.
Yeah, I was able to take the action at a certain point. Exactly.
Because that's really the next step. That's step 3. After setting the right goals, oriented towards the right aims and avatar, is actually taking the action and doing the things.
Doing the thing. And in my example, I went out and I tried something. I tried something a little different. Mm-hmm. And that turned out to be the right action for me.
Sure. And you may, in some other situation, have had to look at several different actions to see what's going to work for you.
Yeah, well, and I had been working on it. I had been taking a certain kind of action already. And I think this is a good example of where we often find ourselves is we have to take the action. We don't know exactly what to do, but we get going, we get moving, and we start to get the feedback. And oh, wait a minute. Now I'm getting some feedback. I can start to adjust my course because we are not intellectual machines. We're not going to usually think our way to the perfect answer. We're not going to use our logic and our intellect to know exactly what to do. That's really not how people work. The way we work is we try it. We try something that makes sense and we get the feedback and then we adjust and then we keep going. We keep modifying, which is, I'm skipping ahead.
Well,
to
I think
the
what
last
you're
step.
doing is you're just articulating how step 3 and step 4 work together, and they do. So step 3 is taking the action, and step 4 is staying focused on your aim and your avatar, but with a lot of flexibility and an open-mindedness and problem-solving skills to keep working your way towards your overall aim. And this is what helps you not fall into the problem of just taking all the action and getting to the end of it all and being like, now, why was I doing that again? What was the point of that? Because you've lost connection and you haven't made the adjustments along the way to stay focused on what it is you really want.
Right. And you guys, as Karen was speaking, you couldn't see her, but her hand was moving in a zigzag fashion. Now I'm waving my hand in a zigzag fashion, illustrating working your way forward. It's not so linear. It's more of a go this way, course correct, go that way, and keep getting the feedback, which is part of the focusing on that endpoint.
Right. And another part is, life's going to throw you all sorts of distractions and things are going to come up. And we can get distracted from things that we wanted. So part of step 4, focusing, is understanding the nature of distractions and being able to refocus and change direction if something else is going to support you in getting there, depending on whatever is going on. It also means creating boundaries so that you can focus on what you want. Successful people have clear, firm boundaries, not because they're shutting people out, but because they're protecting what it is they've decided is their aim. And ultimately, as a Christian, probably their call and their vocation and what God's calling them to. So you create those to protect, and that is very important in getting you to where you want to be.
When you have goals and focus, you have good reasons to say no, and you can keep moving instead of getting distracted, having your energy just kind of dissipated in many different directions.
Yes, yes. So one thing I've heard, Curtis, is that a lot of people who are unsuccessful in reaching their goals, they work this process backwards. They say something like, oh, I really need to focus on X. I'm going to focus on X. So what should I do? Oh, I'll take this action. But the action doesn't really have any oomph behind it, doesn't have the vision behind it. And probably your unconscious is working through a lot of baggage that are obstacles. So you really have to work the process forward in order to be effective in where you're going.
Right, Karen. So when we release our baggage, when we're trying to take action, we don't have the resistance. We're all familiar with wanting to do something, but having this resistance and kind of avoiding it and not really wanting to do it and finding other things to do.
Yes. Part of me wants to, part of me doesn't want to.
And that's going to create weak action.
Yes.
Which is probably going to create poor results.
Which makes you discouraged.
It's going to,
and
set
maybe,
you back.
Make you less likely to keep working towards it.
And you could keep chewing away at it, keep coming back to it. But again, your conscious and unconscious mind, they're not in alignment.
Yeah.
You're having resistance. You're carrying baggage. However you want to say this, it's resulting in kind of a weak action.
Mm-hmm. So, Curtis, I just want to help our listeners know this is a process we use as coaches. We take this process when we're helping people to set goals, release the baggage, set the avatar, get the right aims and goals, take your action and be flexible, but keep your focus in order to get there.
Well, that kind of introspective work, really, it is difficult.
Yeah.
So, Karen, there is a lady we talk to that helps us from time to time. We could call her a spiritual director or a spiritual coach. And I was just struggling in prayer. She led me through a certain amount of introspection where all of a sudden I could see my resistance. And it wasn't like Jekyll and Hyde or something. It's not deep psychoanalysis, but it required introspective work that's just hard. And with her coaching work, it was very helpful.
But often does take someone outside of ourselves to reflect back to us and help us to see more deeply what's going on.
It really accelerates the entire deal,
Totally.
Makes it much faster and more effective. Karen, can you summarize what are those 4 steps?
Sure. Step 1 is release the baggage, the obstacles that might be holding you back or giving you resistance to moving forward. Step 2, create the right goals for you, including a larger vision of who you want to be, what your aims are, and what that means in terms of goals. Step 3, take the action. Take the action, get the feedback. Keep taking action, keep getting feedback. Step 4, stay focused, adjust, be flexible, work with where things take you, but keep your eye on the prize.
Adjust, adapt, overcome.
Yes.
I love that. And if you want to adjust, adapt, and overcome, you could go to our website, Google thecatholicmidlife.com, Google that. And right at the top, there's an orange button that says book a consult. So you can click through on that, and we'd be happy to talk to you. If you're curious about coaching and want to learn more, we'd be happy to speak with you. And the consult is free. So go to thecatholicmidlife.com and look for the happy orange button at the top that says book a consult. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you next week. Thanks for being here with us. The Catholic Midlife Podcast is for anyone that wants to receive the abundance of life that God has for each one of us. Take a moment right now to tell a friend about us.